Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the University of Virginia Law School faculty.
Good afternoon. Please join me in thanking the members of the Massanutten Brass Quintet, which has provided our musical entertainment. Welcome to the graduates of the class of 2012, and welcome to the mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, friends, and relatives whose love and encouragement helped make today possible. For the past 3 years, they supported and tolerated you, even when you suddenly began responding to simple questions with elaborate hypotheticals. I ask the graduates to stand and join me in a round of applause to honor and thank them. In August 2009, you walked into Kaplan Auditorium brimming with talent, motivation, and concern. I remarked to you then that we would both be amazed at how quickly the next 3 years would pass, and they did pass quickly. You immersed yourself in the study of a new and complex field. You welcomed the intellectual challenges that awaited you and met them energetically. But you did not focus just on yourselves. You raised money and donated your time to countless important causes. Indeed, your engagement with this community and many others has been remarkable and noteworthy. The class of 2012 collectively put in more than 14,400 hours in pro bono activities in assistance of those who could not afford legal representation. That is the highest total of any graduating class in our history. Over 90 of you met the pro bono challenge by performing 75 or more hours of pro bono service while in law school. That, too, is the highest total of any graduating class. You continued the tradition of the UVA Law Public Service Day initiative, hosting public service days to benefit the Charlottesville community. Under your leadership, a record 60 students participated in the Alternative Spring Break program, in which students forego a week on the beach in order to contribute their time and experience to those in need of legal services. Through the Law School Public Interest Law Association, you helped make it possible for some of your classmates to take unpaid or low-paid public interest employment during the summer. You raised money for Children, Youth, and Family Services, the principal beneficiary of the North Ground Softball Invitational. 23 of you participated in the law school's newly created program in law and public service. Under your leadership, our 10 student-run journals published a total of 32 issues. You helped start new student organizations, such as the Aristotle Society, which helps students learn and practice the art of public speaking. Your classmates organized and hosted events featuring legal scholars, practitioners, judges, and elected officials. Among them this year were Bob Bauer, Duke Collier, Demora Smith, and judges Raymond Jackson and Tina Bird, all graduates of the law school. During these 3 years, you saw significant changes in the world around you. The Iraq War came to a close with the departure of U.S. troops last December. A series of uprisings in the Middle East overthrew existing governments with results that are still to be determined. As China prepares for a change in its top leadership, Vladimir Putin resumed the presidency of Russia. In the United States, 2 Supreme Court justices retired and their successors took office. Closer to home, our university inaugurated its 8th president, Dr. Teresa Sullivan. The market for legal services continues to change, with established law firms collapsing and new ways of delivering service springing up. You are remarkably well equipped to navigate these changes. You have acquired a powerful new set of skills, the lawyer's ability to analyze and express ideas with clarity and precision. These skills are the primary stock and trade of a practicing lawyer, but they are much more than that. Anyone who has witnessed a well-trained lawyer's talent for solving problems and zeroing in on the most important fact or issue will not find it at all surprising that the President of the United States, the Secretary of State, 16 CEOs of the nation's 100 largest companies, countless entrepreneurs, and a surprising number of prominent figures in the worlds of sports and the arts, among many others, are lawyers. You are trained to be leaders, and you will be, in your careers, your communities, and in some cases, in elected or appointed public service. I have no doubt that at some future reunion of the class of 2012, we will all celebrate the many ways that you will have succeeded in the intervening years. Your law school is proud of you and confident of your future. It has been a true pleasure for those of us on stage to watch you grow intellectually and personally. We send you on our way today with our complete admiration, our affection, and most of all, our congratulations. Sanjeev Tata, your student body president, will introduce our speaker. Before coming to the law school, Sanjeev received a bachelor's degree with distinction from Cornell University. After graduation, he will work in the New York office of the international law firm Clifford Chance. Sanjeev has contributed to the vitality of the law school through his work with the Student Bar Association and the Virginia Law Review. And his sweater vests were a distinctive fashion statement, if somewhat impractical in the Central Virginia climate. It has been a pleasure to work with him this past year. Sanjeev.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Dean Mahoney, for such a kind and accurate introduction. Ironically, I am indeed wearing a sweater vest under this. So if I faint, probably just send up Jen Becker to finish the speech off for me. It is my honor today to announce the class gift, to introduce our distinguished speaker, and to offer my own congratulations to the class of 2012, a group of individuals for whom it's been my special pleasure to get to know over the past 3 years. But congratulations are not just due to the graduates, and here I would like to echo Dean Mahoney. The class of 2012 has come through a number of hurdles for the past 3 years. In order to reach graduation today, our success was dependent, in no small part, upon the support which was offered in an unwavering fashion from all of our friends and family. And so thanks are due to every one of those individuals who stood beside us and behind us throughout every step of our law school journey. These are the individuals to whom we turn for help, and for guidance when we thought we might be overwhelmed, or perhaps when we thought that law school just wasn't the right place for us. These are the individuals who inspired us to keep going no matter what obstacles stood in our path and urged us to be the best that we could be. So no less than the graduates, these individuals have achieved something great today, and I hope you would join me in giving them yet another round of applause for the friends and family of the graduating class. Also, as a small reminder to the friends and families, the graduates still have the bar exam to come, so I'd be prepared for another frantic phone call or two in the coming months. Now, when I reflect over my law school experience, I'm particularly struck by the effect which Virginia law's particular culture had on my 3 years. Almost before I even set foot on grounds for orientation, everything I heard about Virginia law said it was synonymous with collegiality. Now, I'll be honest, I was initially skeptical. Would I be the sort of person, someone who's interested in wine and fencing, would I fit in at a school that's commonly described as a beer and softball sort of institution? And now I know, after spending 3 years at Virginia law, that Virginia lives up to every facet of its collegial reputation. Indeed, far from the beer and softball description which our school sometimes receives, the law school community defies definition. And I have to say, over my past 3 years, I found it difficult to describe a typical, let alone stereotypical student at Virginia law. Now, in no other area is the class of 2012's engagement clearer than in the degree of support which went into our class gift. For all of the guests in the audience, there's a tradition at Virginia law, where each graduating class pledges to support the law school, and I might add that equally traditional is the envy which we receive from our peer institutions in this regard, as student participation in this pledge is historically quite high and usually unrivaled. I'm proud to say that this year, their tradition continues. Without a doubt, our class faced its share of storms and uncertainties in the changed economic circumstances which manifested shortly after we decided to follow law as a career. This makes it all the more amazing that our class has continued the high tradition of support for our alma mater, which our school has established a firm reputation in. And today, it is my pleasure to announce our class gift, in which we've had 82% participation from the class of 2012. That means 296 individuals have pledged to support the law school, which is an impressive number by any estimation. So if you would, I would like to ask you to join me in a round of applause for those individuals. An alumnus I spoke to 2 weeks ago told me that the real challenge for Virginia law students was adapting their collegial attitude and the outlook that they learned at Virginia law to their future careers. And it seems to me that this individual has hit the nail right on the head. The challenge that the class of 2012 faces as it graduates today is to stay true to Virginia law's vision of collegiality and citizenship, even as we make our way in the wider world. The ideals of Virginia law have undoubtedly affected our law school experience, and now it is up to us, the graduating class, to carry those ideals with us and to seek to affect the legal community for the better. Virginia has taught us that an adversarial profession can easily coexist with a collegial environment and a collegial attitude with regards to our peers, and it's up to us to now serve as an ambassador of this message. Today's speaker, even if he has not gone to Virginia law, undoubtedly embodies this message. Mr. Neal Katyal has blazed a stellar career in law and public service as a practitioner, public policy advocate, professor, and constitutional scholar. Prior to joining Hogan Lovells, where he currently serves as the head of the appellate litigation practice, Mr. Katyal served in the administration of President Barack Obama as acting Solicitor General from May of 2010 to June of 2011. And prior to that, Mr. Katyal served as Principal Deputy Solicitor General. Unsurprisingly, Mr. Katyal received the Edmund Randolph Award, the highest award which the Justice Department can offer to any civilian in recognition of his esteemed public service. Additionally, Mr. Katyal is a well-known and well-respected legal scholar. Prior to being tapped to serve in the Justice Department, Mr. Katyal served as the Paul and Patricia Saunders Professor of National Security Law at Georgetown University Law Center, and for many years has served as a visiting professor at Harvard and Yale Law Schools. It should come as no surprise that Mr. Katyal established his scholarly credentials quite early. He graduated from both Dartmouth College and Yale Law School with the highest of honors, and then he went on to clerk for Judge Guido Calabresi on the Second Circuit, as well as Justice Stephen Breyer at the Supreme Court. And indeed, Mr. Katyal is well known as one of the leading advocates before the Supreme Court today. As acting Solicitor General, he successfully defended the constitutionality of the 1965 Voting Rights Act in the landmark case of Northwest Houston v. Older. And in 2006, Mr. Katyal electrified the legal community by successfully challenging the United States government's military tribunals framework in the case of Hamdan v. Rumsfeld, a case which now every law student learns in their basic constitutional law course. Reflecting his deep commitment to diversity, Mr. Katyal has also represented the deans of many major law schools in the equally famous case of Grutter v. Bollinger, the University of Michigan affirmative action case, which the Supreme Court decided in 2003. Finally, and most importantly, Mr. Katyal has achieved something which only a few can aspire to. He's been featured on the Colbert Report, and not once, but twice. By any measure, Mr. Katyal is one of the top lawyers in the nation, and I ask you to please join me in welcoming him as our speaker today.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. To the students, to the family and friends, I have to say it's a real honor to speak to you all. You've worked so hard for this day, and it's a day you'll always remember, and to be just a small part of that means the world to me. This is one of the world's greatest law schools. I think it's fair to say that the University of Virginia Law School has produced more people that I would trust with my life than any other law school. The CEO of my firm, Warren Gorell, the co-head of my appellate practice, Kate Stetson, and the lawyer I admire most in the federal government, Ed Needler, are each graduates of your school. Now, after I accepted your invitation, I thought it'd be wise to learn a bit more about your school. So I turned to that fair and impartial source of everything of information in the legal academy and the legal environment more generally, abovethelaw.com. Now, needless to say, I thought about fabricating an unavoidable conflict for fear of being associated with so much controversy. I have no idea what you did to them, but those guys really don't like you. Now, just in case Above the Law wasn't giving you a fair shake, I turned to your esteemed periodical, The Law Weekly, to learn what really goes on here. But like you, I only bothered to read the thumbs up and thumbs down section. Now, as an aside, I'd like to give a thumbs up to the recent arrival of Professor Coughlin's grandson, and I hope you post some videos of him doing the Coughlin hop as soon as possible. Having learned little from the newspaper, other than Kevin Donovan is giving me a run for my money in the inspirational speech department, I decided to ask around to see what makes the University of Virginia Law School so great. The consensus appears to be that the University of Virginia is definitely the most congenial law school. I must admit I'm a little jealous that I missed out on some of your great traditions, like playing softball, like partying at Foxfields, streaking the lawn after a night of Built or 3, or perhaps making the most important Fed Club decision, snow pants or no pants. Clearly, Above the Law does not know what it's talking about. This is a fantastic T7 school. In all seriousness, I want to tell you 3 stories derived from the healthcare case. Now, no big deal. I'm sure your families, seeing a constitutional law professor, have now arrived at the moment they most dread, as have you. Another lecture about the Dormant Commerce Clause. Maybe I'll spice it up with a little Article 1, Section 8 thrown in. Maybe I'll mix it up with some McCulloch versus Maryland. Now, I want to talk to you actually about the personalities behind the recent healthcare case, as I think they model the qualities that you should all think about as you decide what you're going to be like as lawyers and citizens. First, a story about the challenger to the law, Paul Clement. A brilliant lawyer, former Solicitor General of the United States, argued dozens of Supreme Court cases. And if you happen to listen to his arguments this term or read his briefs, you'd come away with your mind blown. Now, why? Beyond all of the usual reasons, hard work, intelligence, lies something else. And I spent a lot of time this spring trying to figure out what it is. And I think I have the answer, and it's somewhat counterintuitive. When we think of a great orator, we think of a great speaker. Paul is that, but much more important than that. He's a good listener. He tries hard to understand what the other side is saying. He's not trying to characterize it. He's not trying to belittle it. He's seeking to understand it and rebut it. True listening is really hard. It requires dispassion, and it requires empathy. You cannot truly cultivate those traits in yourself if you only hang around people like you. If all your friends grew up where you grew up, if all of them shared the same politics, if all of them went to the same schools and are all of the same religion, it's going to get harder, a heck of a lot harder, to truly listen. So my first piece of advice to you is to be like Paul. Make friends with people who think differently than you. Learn from them. It'll make you not only a better advocate, it'll make you a better citizen. In our day and age, with splintered, polarized factions, it'll be up to the bar to transcend all that divisiveness and point the way forward. But there's more to this story than that. A year ago, things didn't look so good for Paul. He was at a big law firm, and he had agreed to take on the task of defending the constitutionality of the Defense of Marriage Act. This was enormously controversial litigation, and his law firm ultimately told him he had to withdraw from the case. Now, Paul could have taken the easy route and followed what his superiors told him to do. By all accounts, he was getting paid many millions of dollars a year and was sought after. But Paul didn't do that. He resigned from his firm on a Friday, joined a tiny firm a few days later. Now, and only with a year later, with the retrospect of hindsight, we can say things worked out well for him. With 9 arguments in the Supreme Court this term, and almost every one of them pitch perfect, I'm not sure anyone else in modern history has come close. But my point here is that there will be times in your life when things look bleak, and you can take the easy path or the hard path. If you stick to your principles, even if it immediately disadvantages you, you are ultimately more likely to do better. Ours is a profession of patience, a profession of delayed gratification. Don't be in such a hurry to chalk up all of your success. Savor the learning process and stick to your principles. Second, a story about the defender of the healthcare law, a man from the University of Virginia Law School class of 1978, Ed Needler. Now, Ed was my deputy in the Solicitor General's office, and I've never met a finer lawyer, nor a more conscientious person. Ed works in an office with strong personalities, solicitors general who come and go and argue the big cases with the glare of the nation upon them. It'd only be human for Ed to be a little wistful about that sometimes, to use it as a reason to do a little less work, to go home a little earlier. But that's not Ed. Ed is the guy who comes in every Saturday, comes in every Sunday. Ed is the guy who often turns out the lights in the office during the week. Ed is the guy, if you are the Solicitor General, you can always turn to, the person you can trust. What makes Ed this way? Well, part of it, no doubt, is character. Integrity can't be taught, it can only be modeled. And this guy models it better than anyone I know. But another part of it can be taught, and that is Ed's commitment to institutionalism. Too many lawyers today see themselves as solo guns for hire, even in big firms or big institutions like the government. And I see so many people chasing the elusive big case that'll bring them fame and glory. And I see so many lawyers who elbow out others and take credit when they get a victory. But if you're constantly thinking not for the good of yourself, but for the good of the institution of which you are part, you'll often reach the place of integrity. Situate yourself as part of an institution, learn its traditions, and protect them. In short, be true to yourself. The way you think, the way you act, the faith you have, the way you deal with problems and find solutions, keep in mind it's gotten you this far. You don't have to be a different person for your bosses or partners. I've seen too many people graduate from law school and lose sight of this. And I think you get in trouble sometimes when you try too hard to impress someone. I remember a few years ago, a friend of mine, he graduated from law school, couldn't get a job, so he decides to hang out a shingle. And it's the first day, and I go over to him in the office, and there's no one there. And there's a knock at the door, and he says, this is it. It's my first big chance, big case. I'm going to come in, and I'm going to get my first case, because there's a knock at the door. And so he says to the woman at the door, hold on a second, and he picks up his phone. Now, he was a gadget guy. He had a phone with like 100 buttons on it. He had 4 lines, even though it was just a solo practitioner. And he picks up the phone, and he says, well, come in, and if you think that I am going to settle for this, you are crazy. I will not settle for less than $500,000 because I'm going to take you to court, and when I go to court, I win. And he then slams down the phone, and he says to the woman who knocked on the door, I'm so sorry, I had to deal with that emergency. And he says, what can I do for you? And the woman says, I'm here from AT&T. I'm here to connect your phone. Third, a story about a judge. Now, the healthcare case is pending, and I'm not boneheaded enough to talk about a Supreme Court justice, but I do want to talk about a judge who sits in Ohio and who heard the healthcare case on the Court of Appeals. His name is Jeff Sutton. He's young. He's 51 years old, a rock star of the conservative legal movement. He made his name arguing states' rights cases. Clerk for Justice Scalia, President Bush put him on the Court of Appeals at the tender age of 42. He, along with Paul Clement and a couple of others, is the short list should a Republican win the presidency of the United States. When the news came out that Judge Sutton was on the healthcare panel, the media and blog reports were grim to the government. It was thought that Judge Sutton, who had gotten on the court due to huge amounts of political capital being spent on his behalf by conservative Republicans, could never betray their cause. Not simply out of loyalty to his friends, it was said, but because a vote for Obamacare would mean Judge Sutton would automatically take himself out of running to be on the United States Supreme Court. Now here I'm going to get a little personal. I argued the healthcare case before Judge Sutton, and I can tell you it was not easy. He grilled me backwards, forwards, upside down, and every other dimension for a long time. I remember when I came out and called the Attorney General to give him a report, I said, well, it was the most fun I've had, but I think we're going to lose. That judge was really on top of every single possible argument. Well, we didn't lose. We won the case in a 2-1 decision, and the author of that opinion, Judge Sutton. I realize today is a family affair. I'm not here to get into the merits of the case. I simply want to say a finer opinion has not been written in the federal reports. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm challenging you to reflect on what this story tells you. Imagine you were in Judge Sutton's shoes, as you might be one day. What would you do? Your friends, your loyalties, your future, all tell you to vote one way, but your mind tells you to do something else. Would you do the right thing? Not when doing so is easy, but when it's hard, when it really counts. Can you put principle above yourself, even when the stakes are high, unimaginably high, the Supreme Court of the United States? Well, Judge Sutton in one stroke showed what judging is all about. And in doing so, he actually gave himself the most important credential to be on the high court, true independence and honesty. And I have no doubt that that's how future presidents will see him. But Judge Sutton couldn't have known it at the time, just as Paul couldn't have known it at the time when he left his law firm. But being principled pays. So that concludes my 3 stories, one about the importance of being a good listener, one about integrity, and one about independence of thought. I have now 2 final reflections to offer. First, there's one thing that all 3 of these people I've spoken about share, and that is a deep, profound love of family. In most every conversation I've had with Paul, with Ed, and with Judge Sutton, their devotion to their kids and spouses has always been central. And that should come as no surprise. For almost all of you, you're sitting here today as the product of your hard work, but also the hard work of the mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, uncles, friends, teachers, and others. And I know the dean did this, but I think it's worth doing again. Just a moment of applause for all of those people here who've supported you so much. A while back, there was an interesting piece about happiness by David Brooks in the New York Times describing the Harvard class of 1938. It was a class with JFK and many other stars, and a group of scientists studied them throughout their lives. They had everything going for them, but yet many remained profoundly unhappy, despite wealth, power, fame, and glory. Some drank themselves to death, others committed suicide. The study found that the one thing that predicted happiness, true happiness, were the ones with their friends and with people with friends and family behind them. And I think about that because whatever professional accomplishments I may have, nothing comes close, not even for a millisecond, to the pride and joy I take in my family, to my marriage, and with my 3 boys. Indeed, they're sitting right over there, and I am thankful to them every day. And that brings me to my second reflection. You may have noticed that I shamelessly lifted the concept of 3 stories from Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement speech. And some of you may have even read the Steve Jobs biography. I did, and when I read it, it actually had a deep, pernicious influence on me. For the next week, I was self-consciously hard on my coworkers, mean even, and it made me and everyone I worked with miserable. Clearly, I did not go to the University of Virginia Law School. I'm sure there are geniuses like Steve Jobs who thrive on such things, but for us, for you and I as lawyers, law is a profoundly human and social enterprise, and if you want to live in the law, and live happily, you'll have to respect your colleagues and treat them with respect. So in sum, show them the grace of an Ed Needler, show them the open-mindedness of a Paul Clement, and show them that you have the integrity of a Judge Sutton. That is what I wish for each of you. Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you so much for those wonderful remarks. One of the most enjoyable parts of this ceremony is the opportunity to recognize some of those who have contributed so much to the law school over the past 3 years. The awards to be presented today to the class of 2012 are described briefly on the back page of your program. Listed there are honors and awards already conferred upon members of the graduating class. The award recipients we honor today have not previously been so identified. Indeed, most will not have been aware of their selection before I call their names. If your name is called, please stand to be recognized. Recipients will be presented the awards themselves as they cross the stage to receive their diplomas. The Virginia State Bar Family Law Book Award. Established by the Family Law Section of the Virginia State Bar and the Virginia chapter of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, and presented to the graduating student who has demonstrated the most promise and potential for the practice of family law. The 2012 recipient of the Family Law Award was Editor-in-Chief of the Virginia Law Review, Kent Piacenti. The Virginia Trial Lawyers Association Trial Advocacy Award, presented to a graduate who shows particular promise in the field of trial advocacy. The 2012 recipient of the Trial Advocacy Award was on the Articles Review Board of the Virginia Journal of Criminal Law, Colleen Deppman Kakowski. The Eppa Hunton IV Memorial Book Award, given by the associates of the Richmond law firm of Hunton and Williams in honor of the late Mr. Hunton, class of 1927, and presented to a graduate who demonstrates unusual aptitude in courses in the field of litigation and shows a keen awareness and understanding of the lawyer's ethical and professional responsibility. The 2012 recipient of the Eppa Hunton Award was executive editor of the Journal of Law and Politics, Amber Glee Williams. The John M. Olin Prize in Law and Economics, presented on behalf of the Olin Program to a student who has produced outstanding work in the field of law and economics. The 2012 recipient of the Olin Prize receives the award for his paper, The Devil We Don't Know, The Potential Pitfalls of Shareholder Control Over Corporate Political Expenditures, and was on the editorial board of the Virginia Law Review, Stephen Yifu Sun. The Earl K. Shaw Labor Relations Award, established by Mr. Shaw, class of 1934, and presented to the graduate who shows the greatest promise in the field of labor relations. The 2012 recipient of the Shaw Award was on the senior editorial board of the Virginia Journal of Social Policy and the Law, Dena Harandi. The Edwin S. Cohen Tax Prize, established by the late Professor Cohen and presented to the graduate who has demonstrated superior scholarship in the tax field. This year there are 2 recipients of the Cohen Tax Prize. The first 2012 recipient was executive editor of the Virginia Journal of International Law, Peter Vance Nelson. The second 2012 Cohen Tax Prize recipient was on the senior editorial board of the Virginia Law and Business Review, William Jordan Pergler. The Mortimer Kaplan Public Service Award, established by Mr. Kaplan, class of 1940, who has long been associated with the law faculty and the law school, and presented to a graduate entering a career in the public service sector who demonstrates the qualities of leadership, integrity, and service to others. The 2012 recipient of the Kaplan Award was also selected as the winner of the Oliver Hill Law Student Pro Bono Award by the Virginia State Bar, Salima Elizabeth Burke. The Herbert Kramer Herbert Bangle Community Service Award, established by the late Mr. Kramer, class of 1952, and presented to the graduate who has contributed the most to the community during his or her time in the law school. The 2012 recipient of the Kramer Bangle Award was on the editorial board of the Virginia Law Review, Jesse Cobb Stewart. The Roger and Madeline Traynor Prize, established by the late Chief Justice Traynor and his wife, and presented to 2 graduates who have produced outstanding written work. The first recipient of the 2012 Traynor Prize receives it for his note, Greater and Lesser Powers, and was on the editorial board of the Virginia Tax Review. Samuel Isaac Levin. The second recipient of the 2012 Trainer Prize receives it for her note, Securing Sovereign State Standing. She is also the recipient of the Z Society Shannon Award, presented to the graduate with the highest academic record after 5 semesters. The 2012 recipient of the Trainer and Shannon Awards was Articles Development Editor of the Virginia Law Review, Catherine Mims Crocker. The Robert E. Goldston Award for Distinction in the Classroom, established by Mr. Goldston, class of 1940, and presented by vote of the faculty to the graduate who has contributed the most to classroom education by his or her outstanding recitation and discussion. The 2012 recipient of the Goldston Award was Articles Review Editor of the Virginia Tax Review, Kathleen Shen. The Law School Alumni Association Best Note Award, presented to the member of the graduating class who authored the best note in a current volume of a law school publication. The 2012 recipient of the Best Note Award receives it for his note, De Facto Supremacy, Supreme Court Control of State Commercial Law, and was executive editor of the Virginia Law Review, John Benton Hurst. The Thomas Marshall Miller Prize, established by the late Emily Miller Danton in honor of her father, who attended the law school, and presented by a vote of the faculty to an outstanding and deserving member of the graduating class. The 2012 recipient of the Miller Prize was Articles Editor of the Virginia Law Review, Andrew James Montgomery Bentz. The James C. Slaughter Honor Award, established in honor of the late Mr. Slaughter, class of 1951, and presented by vote of the faculty to an outstanding member of the graduating class. The 2012 recipient of the Slaughter Award was Notes Editor of the Virginia Journal of International Law, Sarah Deering Johns. The Margaret G. Hyde Award, established by the late Forrest J. Hyde, Jr. from the class of 1915 and presented by vote of the faculty to the graduate whose scholarship, character, personality, activities in the affairs of the school, and promise of achievement have entitled him or her to special recognition. The 2012 recipient of the Hyde Award was Senior Review Editor of the Virginia Law and Business Review, Andrew John Peach. Before presenting the diplomas, I have the happy duty of informing you that Patricia Merrill, a graduate of the class of 1992, and the president of the Law School Alumni Council will be stationed at the end of the stage to my left to present each graduate on behalf of the Alumni Association with a memento of the law school. We will now prepare the stage for the presentation of diplomas.
I will now call the roll of the graduates for presentation of diplomas. For the degree of Juris Doctor, Ahmed Abdul Rahman. David Ikenna Adams. Brendan Mather Ahern. Jimmy Alozos. Kirk Jared Anderson. Michelle Jade Anderson. Kyle Scott Baird. Manu Kashyap Balachandran. Richard Joseph Boulaz. Nicholas James Barker. Jennifer Ann Becker. Seth Davis Beckley. John Elliott Bierbauer. Lucas Edward Byrne. Andrew James Montgomery Bentz. Julie Diane Bentz. Craig Jacob Bergman. Pedro Jose Bermeo. Catherine Mary Bai. Harold William Bloom. Matthew C. Bloom. Mickey Allison Bloom. Sean James Bachert. Clifford Edward Beglin. Wesley Aaron Bowling. Jessica Noel Boluda. Michael David Bookman. Claire Marie Boroneau. Travis Petty Brinton. Kristen Cabot Brumbarek. Lindsay Marie Brooker. Michael John Broom. Ashley Christina Brown. Natalie Elizabeth Brown. Joseph Douglas Budd. Salima Elizabeth Burke. Andrew Martin Butaro. Valerie Byer. Zachary Thomas Byers. Roberto Carlos Castillo. David Saunders Chamberlain. Elizabeth Winnie Chan. Kelly Ann Chang. Sarah Sophie Chase Levinson. Chioma Ifeinwa Chukwu. Stacy Jihei Chung. Joshua Andrew Clark. Teal Lawrence Clark. Sarah Michelle Klingon. Ryan Lee Clyde. Ross Evan Coe. Richard James Conorow. Ellen Frances Cornut. Elizabeth Burke Crawford. Catherine Grace Mims Crocker. David J. Katyal. Joseph Allen D'Agostino. Elizabeth Juliet Dalton. Srijita Dasgupta. Mary Frances Dassel. Megan Elizabeth Dellinger. Kathleen Maria del Sandro. David Zeki Demirbalek. Evan Grant Didier. Matthew Kenneth Dinan. Sonali Dohali. Matthew Ainsworth Dominy. Brendan Charles Donahue. Karen Elizabeth Dottori. Richard Francis Dabul Dudley. Nicholas Dyer Dumais. Aaron Lee Earp. Milad Imam. Jibin Fan. Layli Farizadeh. Amy Lane Fowler. Elaine Victoria Fenna. Catherine Marie Fenig. Andrew Nathan Ferguson. Adam Jesse Fleischer. Daniel Robert Foster. Kellen Fowler. Kimberly B. Frumpkin. John Calvin Fuchs. Robert Walker Fultz. Gary Andre Victor Gavison. Scott Brandon Galla. Jessica Nicole Garcia. Micah Germain. Shay Matthew Gibbons. Catherine Walker Gilman. Jennifer Jean Gimbert. Adithi Goyle. Jason Zachary Goldstein. Daniel Alexander Gordon. Kelly Lauren Gordon. Charles Jonathan Granger. Natalie Elizabeth Gray. Amanda Laius Gray Williams. Matthew Penzich Greason. Emerald Paula Graywood. Daniel Moises Good. Catherine Ellen Guilfoyle. Haley Ann Haldeman. Stephanie Lynn Hall. Tara Eileen Halsh. Douglas Michael Hance. Denna Harandi. James Matthew Harrigan. Michelle Chance Harrison. Matthew Richard Harvey. Daniel Benjamin Hausman. Meredith Blair Hawkins. Kelsey Hazard. Russell Allen Henderson. Elisa Herman. Jack Alexander Herman. Sarah Elizabeth Hickey. Elizabeth Patricia Hinckley. Jessica Lindsay Ho. Stephen Scott Hollingsworth. Jacob Alexander Holt. Sean Richard Horrocks. Nicole Elise Hershowski. Victoria Lynn Shaw. Yuji Eugenia Huang. Allison Harnack Hubert. Thomas John Humphrey. John Benton Hurst. Keisha Nicole Jackson. Megan Lang Janes. McChesney Hill Jeffries. Jared Rodman Jenkins. Laura Marie Jenkins. Sarah Deering Johns. Anna Maria Johnson. Gary Wenzel Johnson. John Seth Johnson. Laura Jean Jolly. Jason Renee Jones. Brannon Albert Jordan. Catherine Frances Jordan. Samuel Kegel Juhan. Yunju Jung. James Alexander Kaiser. Constance Karras. Clay William Carwish. Rena Kelly. Jessica Ray Kelly. Carolyn Honoria Kendall. Nathaniel Troy Kenser. Vivian Eunice Kim. David Austin King. Simone Marcella King. Lance Robert Kiss, Jr. Zuzana Zofia Knapinski. Philip Sun Ko. Georgiana Levy Koneski. Nicholas Charles Kranak. Colleen Detman Kukowski. Cindy C. Kung. Glenn Grayson Kunkus. Lauren Elizabeth Kunkel. Allison Marie Lancel. Christina Susan Leeton. Emily Clancy Lechner. Jennifer Joy Lee. Jessica Marie Lee. Leslie Ann Lee. Nathaniel Harris Lee. Samuel Isaac Levin. Veronica Jean Liu. Oliver C. Liao. Alan Sheelan Lin. David Mark Locker. Brett Philip Lowe. Jason Cyrus Lynch. Robert Wood Lynn. Natalie Christine Madai. Brittany Hope Maddox. Lindsay Chamness McGuigan. David Clifton Majors. Anne Claire Maloney. Timothy Patrick Malone. Aisha Mancodi. Barlow Treadwell Mann. Robert William Manoso. Leanne Michelle Merrick. Courtney Beth Morello. Elizabeth Ann Marshall. Vincent Blair Marsteller. Michael John Martello. Benjamin James Martin. Eric David Martin. Ben Yusuf Massey. Richard Peter Massoni. Ashley Brianne Matthews. Laura Renee Malden. Benjamin Arthur Mayer. Mark Allen McBride. Catherine Harding McCord. Francis Gardiner McCorkle, Thomas Regan McDermott, Timothy Patrick McKernan, Callie Mae McWraith, Cassandra Ashley Mendoza, Eric Mang, David Robert Merritt, David Daniel Metcalf, Scott Matthew Migliore, Yuri Militich, Kristen Ann Millay, Matthew Lee Miller, Evan Campbell Mix, Jed Thomas Moody, Stephanie Teresa Moore, Hallie Catherine Morgan, Megan Keeley Morrill, Caitlin Elizabeth Morris, Natalie Danielle Morris, Haley Shaw Morrison, Michael Scott Moskowitz, Rachel Elizabeth Mossman, Rebecca Ann Muff, Dhruba Mukherjee, George Alfonso Naya, Peter Vance Nelson, Patrick Lee Neville Jr., Carolyn Leigh Wynn, Nathaniel Jackson Nichols, Ryan Anthony Naughton, Timothy William Ormsby, Laura Rose Pagliani, John Chris Pappas, Catherine Ann Parrott, Kimberly Louise Pascal, Alan Michael Pate, Kinnell Mahesh Patel, Julie Ann Patter, Andrew John Peach, Jeffrey Stephen Pellegrino, David Perez, Thomas William Perez Lopez, Michael Jordan Perglair, James Joseph Petrilla, Kent Piacenti, Caitlin McLaughlin Poe, Kevin Christopher Poe, Brian Thomas Pauley, Jeffrey Stewart Porter, Mark Adam Rabideau, Corey Adam Rand, Amber Renee Randolph. Christopher Michael Riley. Emily Marie Renzelli. Catherine Ann Reynolds. Laura Emily Richardson. Frank Brock Riggs. Thomas Morgan Riley. Diane Marie Risch. Ricardo Arturo Roa, Jr. Tamisha Captura Robinson. Madeline Christine Rodriguez. Robbie Freda Rogart. Margaret Celeste Rolfing. Alexandra Martin Romero. Zachary Lance Rowan. Lana Marie Rowenko. Laura O'Neill Russell. Christine Minji Rue. Melissa K. Samuels. Joel Hugh Sanderson. Madison Bernice Sanyuk. Ashley Elizabeth Sawyer. Jason Philip Shanegold. Christopher Paul Shandeville. Mark Ford Schottinger. Mariana Oliveira Satius. Anne Marie Seller. Daniel Thomas Sharp. Kathleen Shen. Kristen Michelle Shepard. Kathleen Kendall Sheridan. Vladimir Shklovsky. Samba Silla. Lauren Ashley Simpson. Anisha Singh. Henry Sire. Justin Barrett Skidmore. Colin Clemens Smith. David B. Smith. Jessica Marie Smith. Julianne Yolenia Smith. William Becker Sohn. Alexandra Lee Solomon. Sean Michael Solomon. Jessica Faye Somer. Chen Song. Jessica Sue. Brendan Miller Staley. Ann Baldwin Stevenson. Amy Marie Stern. Jesse Cobb Stewart. Catherine Ann Sultanfuss. Stephen Yifu Sun. Ryan Douglas Taggett. Alex J. Talley. Ryan Tansey. Sanjeev Giant Tata. Laura Farish Carter Tate. Aaron Terr. Mark Ryan Thomas. Nathan Brown Thorson. Charles W. Throckmorton. Amanda Grace Tomney. Aaron Kelly Topp. Robert Zachary Torres Fowler. Lars DeForest Troutman. Peter Lindley Trentman. Daniel Tropin. Christine Elizabeth Schitterer. William Merritt Unsworth. Carl Terrell Using. Joseph Leonard Vandegrift. Georgia Chrysalis Varlin. Sunil Vimuro. Laura Daughtry Venker. Holly Rose Vradenberg. Paul Anthony Wagoner. Janice Wong. Marina Andrea Warner. Daniel Paul Watkins. Samuel Kenneth Whitt. Aaron Mark Williams. Amber Glee Williams. Christopher Keith Wimbush. Sarah Elizabeth Wall. Robert Wei Wong. Joseph Quinn Wood. Elizabeth Ingersoll Woodley. Sean Shou Yang. Lindsay Michelle Yergin. Tyler Paul Young. Kevin Junyan Zhao. Christopher John Das. Christina E. Wilson. For the degree of Master of Laws, James Edward Babington Stitt. Maria Belova. Juan Antonio Boyd Aleman. Peter Simon Braun. Jingdong Chen. Dmitry Chuprikov. Sharon Kopp. Ramon Dantas Rata. Kosuke Hamaguchi. Christopher Michael Hartley. Yoichi Hirano. Julian Dominic Cloza. Flavio Lardelli. Pilar Marco. Jonathan Mark McLeod. Benedict Mertens. Neela Monkerhay. Yutaka Owada. Tatsuya Ozawa. Yukako Ozawa. Jungjae Park. Chihiro Raku. Raku. Montserrat Ramirez. Renato Polillo. Toshiko Sato. Christian Snitker. Irina Sheik. Hiroko Surumaru. Mauricio Valdespino. Fabiana Mata Cambrea Viana. Fabian Vega. Jing Wang. Emily Marie Beckmans. For the degree of Doctor of Juridical Science, Ahmed Al-Sharbagi. Yixing Se. This concludes the calling of the roll of the graduates.
Today, you join more than 16,000 Virginia law graduates who have gone before you. Most of those graduates remain actively involved in the life of the law school, and we hope you will as well. In any given year, well over 1,000 of them return to this building. They come to teach as adjuncts or short course instructors, to judge first-year oral arguments and moot court competitions, to speak to student groups, to select the recipients of scholarships, prizes, and other honoraria, to participate in the governance of the law school through membership on the Board of Trustees of the Law School Foundation and the Law School Alumni Association. They come, of course, to recruit our students for their law firms and other organizations. They return in great numbers for their reunions, and some have the great pleasure to see their children graduate from the law school. We hope to see you often, and we hope you will always feel as much a part of the Virginia family as you have over the past 3 years, and will take pride and pleasure in your association with the law school and with the class of 2012. This concludes the ceremony, but there is a reception waiting for us inside, and you're cordially invited to wait out the traffic. Farewell and safe travels.